Welcome back, everyone. It's so great to see you again. Okay, so we just learned about Goffman's concept of discrepant roles. Now we're going to spend some time learning about the ins and outs of communication in dramaturgical interaction. Communication is really what makes us human. It can be, at times, effective and clear, wherein there's little disagreement between the parties over what's being said. But oftentimes, communication is ambiguous. We've all had those "that's not what I meant" moments when we say something but the audience interprets it the wrong way. This is because what you say and mean isn't always what others hear. Communication involves signals that at times get disrupted by the noise of intersubjectivity. Goffman's theory of dramaturgy focuses on the poverty of communication. Shall we get started? Great. Social norms govern not only our behavior, but also our communication. We learn that context is key in determining what we can say and what we can't say. Language is therefore shaped by our social surroundings. Right now, I'm giving a lecture to university students. That's you. I'm communicating the material as clearly as I can, but I'm also taking care to present myself professionally, because that's what students expect from their professors. Of course, I'm not your average professor, and maybe, like Goffman, I might say things in this course and across these lectures just to get a reaction out of you. But most professors are fairly measured in the words that they use. When they are with their friends, they may use profanities in every other word. They may tell sexist jokes. But they wouldn't do this when they are delivering a lecture. We learn as children, mostly through trial and error, that you can say some things at home, but you can't say some things in public. By the time we are adults, we're usually pretty good at judging what we can and can't say and where we can and can't say it. But occasionally, of course, we make mistakes. We get carried away by our emotions, or sometimes we temporarily forget who our audience is. I've selected a couple clips that illustrate such cases of improper communication. In the first one, which comes again from the movie Office Space, you'll see a character getting interviewed by the two consultants. During the interview, he loses control of his emotions and starts to yell at them. The second clip is from a live newscast in the United States. The anchor is introducing a story, and when she thinks her microphone is turned off, she drops the F-bomb. Now again, context is key. Newscasters probably drop the F-bomb on set all the time, and that's perfectly fine. But it's not okay when the audience hears it on accident. Have a look at both clips in succession.
What you do at Initech is you take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers.
Yes, that's right. Well, then I just have to ask, why couldn't the customers just take them directly to the software people, huh?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers.
So you physically take the specs from the customer?
Well, no, my secretary does that, or the fax.
So then you must physically bring them to the software people.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes.
What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
paying more at the grocer, but getting less will tell you how to get the most. The fuck are you doing? We need to acknowledge an unfortunate mistake that I made, and one of the teases we bring to you before this program. While we were live just after 10 o'clock, I said a word that many people find offensive. I'm truly sorry. It was a mistake on my part, and I sincerely apologize.
Goffman emphasizes that we treat people who are absent from a performance much worse than we treat people who are present. This is a fairly universal principle of social interaction. When people are right in front of us, when we are face to face with them, we're generally much more respectful in our interactions than if they are elsewhere. This is one of the reasons why social media can be so dangerous. Many people say hurtful things online about others, but they would never say such things face to face. Goffman describes what he calls secret derogation. When performers are backstage, they often describe the audience in terms that are incompatible with the way that they describe them on the front stage. He argues that this secret derogation of the audience helps to build solidarity and trust within a team. When teams are behind the scenes, Goffman argues that they play out mini dramas where one person pretends to be an audience member and over-communicates idiocy. Think of some examples of secret derogation in the workplace. Employees may, for example, treat customers with respect and reverence in the showroom, but when they are in the staff room, they're quick to ridicule them. You know, you're not going to believe that loser out there kind of thing. Similarly, a professor may be courteous and professional in front of students, but make fun of them in the privacy of his or her own office. But of course, I would never make fun of any of you, am I right? But the question is, would you make fun of me? If you saw me walking around campus, you might say, "Hi, Professor Timming." But after I was out of your sight, what would you say? Maybe, "Hey, there's that crazy professor. What a weirdo." So Goffman points out that teams often engage in what he calls shop talk or staging talk, which take place both before and after performances. The purpose of staging talk is to prepare for the performance, or after the performance is done, to debrief and dissect the performance in order to develop strategies for improving it in the future. Staging talk, as discussed previously, can be used to punish or train actors who have delivered an overall poor performance. Let's think of some examples of this, again in a workplace context. Managers often give a pep talk before the store opens as a way to motivate employees. Sometimes these behind-the-scenes pep talks are not very motivating at all, and at other times they can be downright cringy, as shown in this video clip.
Okay, let's get me a rhythm. Follow me. We are Walmart. We are Walmart. Everybody, one more time. We are Walmart. Last time.
Team collusion is defined here as any collusive communication during a performance that is carefully conveyed without the audience knowing. Goffman gives several examples of this kind of covert communication. Secret signals include staging cues that secretly communicate something among team members without the audience picking up on the meaning of the communication. There are many examples of this kind of communication: a wink, a long, hard stare, a gentle kick with the foot, a hand gesture, passing a note under the table, maybe even a text message. These are all ways that a team can communicate mid-performance with the audience being none the wiser. High signs are similar to secret cues. They are defined as informal cues in teammate communication. For example, communication through facial expressions rather than through words. Derisive collusion is defined as secret communication of contempt or insubordination. This includes instances where team members secretly express contempt for the audience and acknowledge to each other that this is just a show. Doodling, or going away as Goffman calls it, is when we pretend to listen to the audience, but we're actually spacing out. I can't tell you the number of times I've been at a meeting or listened to a presentation, and really all I've done throughout is daydream. Of course, the audience would never know this because I always appear to be paying attention to them, and remember, it's the appearance that counts in Goffman's world. So Goffman defines a sidekick as a person brought into the performance from the outside in order to provide comfort or pleasure. This is like Robin to Batman. A typical sidekick is often a husband or a wife, a boyfriend or girlfriend. I might, for example, bring my wife to a work-related social event just so that I don't have to socialize with my colleagues. I love this concept. Goffman defines realignment as an attempt to change the working consensus of the situation through unofficial, temporary, or controlled communication. Sometimes we just don't like the definition of the situation. Maybe it presents you in a bad light, or maybe it deprives you of something that you want. So what do? You simply change the working consensus and create a whole new definition of the situation. Well, how do you do that? One way, according to Goffman, is to put out feelers. This is an attempt to gradually redefine the situation by shifting social distance or proposing new roles. This is often done by using ambiguous language and revealing just a little bit at a time in order to judge reactions. The gradual disclosure of the new definition of the situation can easily come to an end by saying something like, "Oh, I was just joking. I was just kidding. I didn't really mean that." Goffman argues that many attempts at realignment are aimed at elevating the lower status group into the higher status group, right? So members of the lower status team obviously don't like the fact that they're defined according to the situation as lower status. So they try to reduce social distance and formality. Occasionally, rarely, members of the higher status group might intentionally lower their status only if it serves their interests. For example, think of a manager who begins to act crudely in front of workers, but only in order to gain their respect as, say, just one of the guys. But when high status people abandon their high status, this can lead other high status people to get upset at the intimacy with lower status people. Finally, a sinner is someone who breaks free from the rules of a performance and discloses its secrets to the audience. This is obviously very similar to the concept of a renegade or whistleblower, which we considered previously. Okay, so I spent some time trying to find a video clip that illustrates a successful attempt at realignment, and ended up finding another clip from Seinfeld in which Jerry attempts to change the definition of the situation when he is caught picking his nose, but on this occasion he wasn't so successful. Now, we've all been caught picking our nose on occasion. Come on, admit it. All right, well, just enjoy this clip.
Call every day for the past 4 days. She hasn't returned one call.
Was it a scratch or a pick?
It was a scratch.
Hey, it's me.
Don't you think I know the difference between a pick and a scratch? Yeah.
Me.
Come on up.
Was there any nostril penetration?
There may have been some incidental penetration, but from her angle, she was in no position to make the call.
So let's say in her mind, she witnessed a pick. Okay, so then what?
Is that so unforgivable? Is that like breaking a commandment? Did God say to Moses, thou shalt not pick?
I guarantee you Moses was a picker. You wander through the desert for 40 years with that dry air? You telling me you're not going to have occasion to clean house a little? Huh?
Let me ask you something. If you were going out with somebody and she did that, well, what would you do? Would you continue going out with her?
No, that's disgusting.
Jerry, you gotta get that model to give me an appointment with Calvin Klein. I can't. She won't return my calls because she caught me in a pick at a light.
I thought you said it was a scratch.
But that's not what she thinks.
Hey, why don't you call her agency? Maybe she's been out of town. She didn't get the calls.
Get it. All right. I'll call the agency. Hello? Yes, I'm trying to get in touch with Tia Van Camp. Do you know if she's been in town? Oh, really? Well, thank you very much.
What?
She has been in town. She's at Calvin Klein right now.
Let's go.
Hello. There you are.
Hello. What are you doing here?
Well, I had to talk to you. I noticed you haven't been returning my calls.
Well, I've been busy.
Because I thought we had a good time the other night, and the only explanation I could come up with is that you think that you caught me.
I'd rather not talk about this.
But I was clearly on the outer edge of the nostril.
I know what I saw.
But there was no pig. I did not pick. There was no pig.
I gotta go.
No pig. And what if I did do it? Even though I admit to nothing and never will. What does that make me? And I'm not here just defending myself, but all those pickers out there who've been caught. Each and every one of them. Who has to suffer the shame and humiliation because of people like you. Are we not human? If we pick, do we not bleed? I am not an animal.
Finally, Goffman refers to the importance of what he calls ambiguous communication. This is a classic strategy that we, as actors, frequently use to attempt to redefine or to realign the definition of the situation. The use of ambiguous language affords one the opportunity to pull back from an attempted realignment and to claim post hoc, as noted in the previous slide, that you were just joking or that you really didn't mean anything by it. This is often how people attempt to shift a relationship from one that's purely platonic to one that's romantic. A subtle sexual advance can be an attempt to change the working consensus or the definition of the situation. A male employee might, for example, suggest to a female colleague that they go and get some drinks after work. maybe he'll be successful. But if he's rejected, he of course will then claim that he only meant it as friends. Or he might say, in a more forward way, that they should get a room together. Now, if she comes back and claims sexual harassment, his defense will typically be, oh, well, I was just joking. This is all just one big misunderstanding. In an era of Me Too, we are likely, I think, to see more and more ambiguous communication in attempts to establish a romantic relationship because it acts as a sort of insurance policy for the actor seeking to establish a romantic relationship. Okay, that brings us to the end of this week's lecture. Thanks for hanging in there. Next week, we're going to wrap up our discussion of the presentation of self in everyday life, and I'll look forward to seeing you all then. Bye for now.